Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Price Formation Enhancements Working Group meeting session number 18. This meeting is in regards to the rules of bidding above the soft offer cap. My name is Brenda Corona on behalf of the Stakeholder Affairs Group. We welcome you. On the next slide, we'll be covering a few housekeeping reminders as this call is being recorded for informational and convenience purposes only. Any related transcription should not be reprinted without the IS's permission. During this collaborative working group, we are intended to open dialogue and engage different perspectives, so please keep comments respectful and brief since we are allocating only about 2 hours for this call. Our event producer today is Candace, so if you have any experience with any technical issues, feel free to send them to our event producer, Inteller, or myself. On the next slide, we are covering a few WebEx changes for this meeting. It's very different from the previous platform. We are no longer having pre-registration, but now you're allowed to see all attendees listed on this call. So you're able to view everyone who is in this call for both panelists and attendees. No attendee list will be sent out during the chat. To be asking a question, the raise hand icon is located under the participant panel screen, so that will allow you to be added to queue. Same thing as last time, if you do have a follow-up question, do not mute yourself. It will put you down on lock mute button, so make sure you keep your unmute button so when you're speaking and ask your question. The phone line is the press star 3, not #2 anymore. It used to. So if you're dialed in audio, we have only like one person dialed audio line only, so press star 3 to be added to the queue. As a reminder, please state your full name and affiliation when speaking, and also those questions in chat. Please add your affiliation as well so we can make sure who is asking the question. Feel free to send all questions to all panelists, and then we will go ahead and get started on the next slide, where I think I'll go ahead and introduce Juan for the agenda in today.
Okay, no, thank you very much, Brenda, and thank you to everybody. I know we changed WebEx again, but this was in response to the feedback why we had the pre-registrations, sending out those attendee lists. So again, now everybody can just see those attendee lists. I know we've built up a little bit of muscle memory, so again, we'll get used to not saying #2, but star 3. And then for the hand, look on the right-hand side of your screen. I had a hard time viewing it. It's very little, just right underneath that panelist panel. But we're really gonna spend very little time here over this agenda and the goals, and hand this over to Sylvie so we can get to the meat of this conversation. We've been moving pretty quickly through this, and we really appreciate everybody's engagement. So I'll be covering those goals, and then we're going to dive right into the draft final proposal for the rules for bidding above the soft offer cap. So we'll give a little bit of background. We'll talk a little bit about the proposed changes for the summer of 2024. We'd really value your feedback there. We'll talk about the monitoring of that interim solution, and we'll talk about the long-term enhancements that we kind of continue on with. So let's just move really quickly to the next slide here. So the goals for today's call, you'll notice a little bit of verbiage there about the working group structure, but we are very much in policy development. That's why we have Sylvia, our senior policy developer here, kind of leading the charge. But what we'll do today is we will provide you a presentation on that draft final proposal. We want to receive feedback from this community. And then again, we want to spend some time and have that discussion on those longer term enhancements. Let's move really quickly to the next slide if we could. You'll note that we are here. That arrow is very rapidly moving to the right-hand side. This slide hadn't changed in quite some time. We posted that draft final proposal yesterday. It is on the initiative page. Again, we understand the very quick turnarounds and kind of tight time frames to absorb this material, but that is kind of what we had heard as far as the urgency we're wanting to be responsive. So again, really appreciate, these are some incredibly robust comments, very thoughtful comments, and a very quick turnaround. So I just want to say a big thank you to you guys, stakeholder community, and I would be remiss not to thank our policy team who, they sit maybe 20 yards away from me here to the right-hand side, and there's been an extraordinary amount of work. So I think that all of us together have really been able to kind of drive this where we needed to get to this point where we're having this discussion here today. So with that said, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. And Sylvie, I will hand this over to you.
Thank you, Juan. Thank you, and thank you everyone for joining us today. It looks like it's May 2nd, 2014. I assure you that it is 2024. We're just going to dive right in today. Go to the next slide. We have done a lot for the past month. We had a straw proposal slide deck and a working group call in which we discussed a lot of the details and the feasibility barriers and other constraints around what a potential solution for summer would look like. We had an MSC discussion that helped to shape a lot of the thinking that we heard from stakeholder comments, and we are now on to the draft final proposal phase. I realized that we put this out last night, so I'm going to do this presentation under the assumption that nobody has read it yet. And I'm going to try and keep it as simple as possible to get everyone on the same page, provide a sufficient foundation of knowledge so that you all know what the right questions are to ask and how to proceed to the next steps. I'll note that there is an appendix in the draft final proposal. There's not a lot in it right now, but we plan on adding things either directly into that appendix or in a separate document with at least some additional analysis, some of which we will review in the presentation today. And we can add whatever additional policy or technical backgrounds we hear back from the stakeholder community would be important. I see Michelle say, is this presentation available? Just as the draft final proposal was finished yesterday, this presentation was also a little bit late coming in, so you'll see that on the stakeholder page as soon as possible, but it wasn't there this morning. You're not crazy. Thank you, Brenda, for adding that link. All right, so we are still on track for board week. Let's dive into the proposal. Next slide. I'll do some brief but salient background before we get into things. Recall that FERC order number 831 has some requirements. Each resource's bid is subject to a soft offer cap of $1,000 per megawatt hour. Bids above $1,000 per megawatt hour must be cost verified by the ISO or market monitor, and cost verified bids must be capped at $2,000 per megawatt hour. So today in ISO markets, bids are indeed capped at $1,000 per megawatt hour, or the default energy bid, which is that cost verified bid. The DEBs are also capped at $1,000 per megawatt hour. For the most part, unless a resource is able to adjust it through the reference level change request process. Let's go to the next slide. One thing I wanted to make sure we are all aligned on is that this default energy bid is a resource-specific verified cost. The intent of a DEB is to mirror a resource's specific competitive marginal costs in the market in conditions when market participants might have market power. We want to make sure that if your bid is mitigated, your resources costs are still reflected in the market in an efficient way. These DEBs are a single value calculated pre-market, but we expect that some variation will materialize between expected and actual costs. So that DEB might not be precise throughout the course of a trade day. The ISO's reference level change request process is intended to allow market participants to update those costs that are reflected to the DEBs and commitment cost caps. And as we've discussed previously, there's two options, the manual and automated reference level change request process. And these can be leveraged whenever a generator wants to request that the ISO uses different fuel or fuel equivalent costs. And that holds true whether or not a resource is bidding above the soft offer cap. Next slide. So the issue we've been grappling with is that the reference level change request process does not yet accommodate requested changes to opportunity costs. And stakeholders have pointed out the urgency of looking at the problems that ensue because of this and solving this issue. Energy storage and hydro resources are not effectively able to use this process, and that means that the $1,000 cap that is imposed on bids might limit the ability of these resources to fully reflect the costs that are already defined in DEBs. If your DEB references, for example, an electric price index that rises above $1,000, the $1,000 cap will not allow you to reflect the full value of that opportunity cost. But it also means that these resources cannot request adjusted DEBs, which means that you cannot adjust your DEB in response to intraday opportunity costs or intraday opportunity costs that go above $1,000. And as we've also talked about before, the reference level change request process is something that stakeholders are interested and committed into enhancing, but those changes will be technology and policy resource intensive. So we've assessed all of these stakeholder proposals to try and find a path forward that may be implementable by summer and achieve the same objectives that we've been talking about that might be achieved through the reference level change request process as well. And that's where we've landed on the proposals that we'll discuss today. Next slide. The draft final proposal reflects these two, they're two separate proposals, but they're really incremental. But you can view them as a hydro solution and a storage solution. The first proposal is to revise the cap on all default energy bids from $1,000 to $2,000 per megawatt hour. This is fondly known as the uncapped the DEB proposal. And this would allow hydro resources to bid up to a value that reflects opportunity costs above $1,000 as defined by their DEB. And I included some of the analysis that we've already looked at to show that hydro resources have been, or in a counterfactual analysis, we've observed that hydro resource DEBs can get above $1,000 on these high price days, but those bids are inhibited by the soft offer cap currently. We also observed that storage resource bids don't always get that high. Even if we uncap the DEB on storage resources, that might not solve the problem on high price days. There's also some technical limitations that prevent us from fully copying the same bidding rules for hydro resources on these storage resources. So we've added this incremental proposal to modify the bid cap for storage resources, which would provide comparable bidding flexibility using a proxy value instead of a storage resources uncapped DEB.
Oh, Sylvie, we do have a hand up here. Let's go ahead and unmute Michelle, please.
Hey, this is Michelle from the CPUC Energy Division. So I did actually read the proposal. So it looks like you're proposing to change the uncapped DEBs in both the real time and the day ahead. So my first question, and I have more than one, is that the problem as you initially started was to say that we were prematurely discharging storage, or that storage and or hydro were prematurely dispatching and losing money. Why do you have to change this in the day ahead? That seems to go well beyond the problem statement.
Good question. The revision on the cap, you should view this as a process change. It's not a value change. We are not touching the calculations that go into the DEBs, not changing any of the inputs. None of that is changing. Gas resources today, and note that we're doing this for gas resources as well, all resources that have a default energy bid. Gas resources today need to use the reference level change request process to adjust their DEBs, and they do so as I noted, whether or not they're bidding above the soft offer cap. So the reference level change request process is really intended to facilitate these DEB adjustments beyond what is captured in the DEB. You also have to use that process to validate the value that's captured by the DEB if it goes above $1,000 because of this cap on the default energy bid. But that calculation is based on information that is already known to the ISO. It's based on a calculation that's been validated either by stakeholders or by the Department of Market Monitoring.
Okay,
so that default energy bid should, in theory, already be it's already there.
no.
And all this is doing is streamlining what should be available to resources in the first place.
Okay, well, I don't think that really answers the question about the problem statement as we defined it, because we don't have that issue of premature discharge in the day-ahead market, nor do we have the problem of them having to buy back a schedule. So as we define the problem, I understand what you're saying, but recall that what we're assuming is that the bilateral market is cost verified. And recall that the bilateral market is thinly traded. And not only that, you guys set the DEB for the maximum import bid price based on a pull of the ICE transactions. So you might have 10 ICE transactions by the end of the day, or maybe 3, as we had on September 1st, but you could be pulling one single transaction. So I think that I would disagree that parties agree that the bilateral indices represent a competitive market and are a price. I mean, we have accepted that for resource specific, non-resource specific imports, but I think if we're going to expand this substantially, we have to sort of look at the underpinnings, and I don't think the underpinnings are very strong with regard to the bilateral indices.
I think that's a great point, Michelle, and maybe you want to chime in as we go through the rest of this proposal, because that becomes relevant in a few slides from now. And on my wrap-up page, I also note that this first step that you see on the screen is really foundational. It's fundamental to the rest of the enhancements that we want to consider. And one of those enhancements might be to consider evaluating the proxy costs or other things that we're looking at in order to value these resources opportunity costs.
Okay, and then I just want to do one question, sort of just level setting. So let's say that the bilateral index, there's one transaction at $1,000. DEB is a 40% for hydro resources, is a 40% adder, so it's $1,400. Does that apply all day long? So like that's a validated bid because it's based on the bilateral index plus a 40% adder. Does that mean that we're essentially uncapping that the price cap goes up for the entire day in the day ahead market to $2,000 or $1,400 in that case, but the bid cap goes to $2,000, the hard cap increases?
So I made a slide to illustrate this, but the uncapped DEB is a resource specific cap. So yes, right, the energy bid cap goes up to 2,000. We scale penalty prices if there's a bid up there. However, only that hydro resource gets to bid up to that cap that's defined by its DEB. It doesn't impact the bid itself, impacts the energy cap and penalty prices, but the DEB calculation just serves as the cap for that resource.
Okay, so, but if you have a DEB at 1,400, that means the bid cap is 2,000, which means that non-resource specific resources can bid at 2,000. Is that right?
Well, only you need the bid. Just because you have a DEB that's been calculated above 1,000 doesn't mean anything unless that resource submits a bid to the market above 1,000.
Right, but you know, if the bid cap is 2,000, you're going to have some non-resource specific resource, but it's submitting at 2,000. And then I also just want to be clear that if the bid cap goes to 2,000, that means that low priority exports are going to sit in the system at $2,300. Is that right? Danny, you're on mute.
I think Danny has an answer to that, but he's muted.
Yeah, I was going to say I can help there. Yes, they are protected above either the soft offer cap or the hard offer cap. Back to the original question you posed, though. Why would we uncap the DEBs in the day-ahead market? And it gets back to the fact that we agree with FERC that opportunity costs are real costs. So to the extent that we could reflect these in the formulation of DEBs, we feel that's appropriate. What I'm hearing is that you have concerns about how we're trying to estimate those opportunity costs, which I think is a fair debate. But just on the principle of we wouldn't want to incorporate opportunity costs, that we would disagree. To the extent we think that we can accurately estimate them or proxy them, we would absolutely want to include them both in the formulation of the DEBs as well as informing the bid caps.
Okay, except 2 points. One of which is I don't think we can reasonably say that one 25 megawatt transaction represents an opportunity for 50,000 megawatts, like a valid opportunity cost. But that's a separate matter. Wait, sorry, just have one more point. Yeah, so I don't think it represents a valid opportunity cost. But even apart from that, what about the idea that when we started, we were trying to solve one problem and we seem to have potentially created very many unintended consequences? We're not even solving our original problem. And it's a bit frustrating given that we defined the problem, we were all working on the problem, and then it seems like we've really shifted gears. And then also I just want to make a point, like, I agree that opportunity costs could be real, but the opportunity cost for storage during the hours of discharge is not $2,000. So if we're going to do this, we need to do it correctly. And this is not correctly. I mean, do you really think storage and hydro DEBs during the hours of discharge are $1,400 for hydro and $2,000 for storage?
I think we understand I'm sorry, Sylvie, go on.
So your question about the problem statement, I don't know if you were following along with the price formation enhancements working groups that led to this whole discussion. But in January, I presented a problem statement that said resources with opportunity costs cannot fully reflect those bids in the market because we don't have a way for them to use the reference level change request process. That was the original problem statement. Since then, we got feedback from stakeholders that that an interim solution should have an objective to make sure that they can position themselves properly in the supply stack. But all along, we were looking at enhancing the ability of these resources to reflect their costs accurately. So this top proposal is a direct answer to the problem statement that we started with, and is also the durable piece of this. The second piece is just an interim solution given some of the constraints that we're facing right now.
Okay, well, I'll save the rest of my questions and comments. I think I've made them. Thank you.
I would like to add kind of one more thing, Michelle. You pointed out that the opportunity cost through net peak probably isn't the same as the opportunity cost in the early afternoon, and it's a lot more nuanced of a discussion. The opportunity cost in the early afternoon would be informed by the potential resale of energy across net peak. You could argue the opportunity cost across net peak would be the ability to resale or transact this energy at prevailing bilateral prices during that period. Or so there's valid policy reasons which we would like to discuss with you about what those opportunity costs would be as well. But I think as Sylvie pointed out, the ability to have a super narrow solution that on an hourly basis toggles on and off different opportunity costs it isn't something that would be technologically feasible in the time frame we've asked to come up with a solution for.
Yeah, but this is an extraordinarily big change in an extraordinarily tight time frame, which could have, by my calculation, if we are at a bid cap for the 4 hours from 1,000 to 2,000, which your proposal in the day ahead likely results in, given that we have, 12,000 megawatts of storage and 12,000 megawatts of hydro, or 8,000, so 20,000 megawatts of resources that potentially can sit above the cap during the net peak hour, making it far more likely that we're going to hit and stay at the cap. So by my calculation, that's $50 million over those 4 hours. It is an extraordinarily expensive proposition, not to mention the fact that it still doesn't address the reliability concerns. But that's a separate issue. I'll raise that later. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thanks, Michelle. Let's go ahead and go to Don next, please.
Good morning, Don Trethewey from CISA. Thanks for your hard work on this, Sylvie. I would just note that I think the uncap the debt to me is a clear recognition that capping the DEB was really inconsistent with FERC Order 831, where you're supposed to be able to reflect your costs, and the fact that if you calculated a DEB above 1,000 and wouldn't allow that to be used or bid was probably not the right decision. I do just have a clarifying question on modify the bid cap for energy storage using a proxy value. So I would assume you're not using any reference level change. So if the proxy cost was proxy value was $1,500 and my DEB was $1,050, I could bid at $1,500, but to the extent that there was there was market power concerns and you mitigated me, my price would be $1,050. Is that correct?
I have slides for this exact example all teed up. So
well, I would have looked ahead if I had the slides and waited.
If I had provided with you ahead of time, yeah, I'm so sorry, but I read your mind and I prepared for it. Don't worry.
Thanks, Don. Let's go ahead and go to Doug next.
Hi, Doug Bochignone for Bay Area Municipal Transmission Group. I'm struggling a little to understand. I mean, I think this is only a problem for use limited resources, right? If you don't have a use limitation across the day, you're not worried about whether or not you can bid above 1,000. Or put another way, if you have a use limitation, you want to get your usage shaped. And I think for storage resources and use limited hydro, that there's no need in the day ahead market to allow bidding above $1,000 to get them positioned properly in the day ahead market. There just has to, for a non-generating resource, you just have to have a spread. You could bid to charge at 0 and discharge at $300 if you were worried about getting a charging instruction at $1,700 and you didn't want to lose money if you were 85% efficient, let's say. You could, if you bid charge at 0 and discharge at 300, or charge at 0 and discharge at $1, you're going to get, if you're use limited, if you're storage, you're going to get positioned to charge in the lowest priced hours and to discharge in the highest priced hour. You don't have to bid at the cap. You don't have to bid anywhere near the cap. If you're a hydro resource, you have the option of being an NGR. You model as an NGR and you get dispatched the exact same way. And if you're just a use limited hydro, I think the model still takes into account your use limitation and puts your energy in the most valuable hours. And you don't have to bid your opportunity costs. It's captured in the market. Just by definition, we don't have to touch the day ahead market rules. And I guess my concern is similar to Michelle's. It's like, if we don't need to touch something in order to solve our real-time problem, why are we doing it in the day ahead? Let's focus on the real time.
Good question, Doug. I wasn't around for the energy storage enhancements policy initiative that created the day ahead default energy bid for storage resources, but I am aware that the storage community during those policy discussions identified a need to have that default energy bid just in case of mitigation or scenarios when those prices would hit the cap. I assume that there's more discussion to be done around how to ensure efficiency, both day ahead and real time. But the door is still open to continue to do that.
Yeah, I just to comment on that though, I think it was just I think in real time it's a problem, and we've got to get that opportunity cost into the bids in real time, and this is a good attempt to try to do that. But in day ahead, the market solution nobody needs to guess at what the opportunity cost will be across the day for a storage resource, an NGR. It'll tell you it automatically. Just bid to charge at a lower price than discharge, and if and there's like no harm to any storage resource in the day ahead market of not being able to bid above $1,000. None whatsoever.
You know, yeah, I I hear you. These default energy bids are designed to reflect a resource's true marginal cost. So insofar as they do that, we don't see a need to artificially cap them. We want those true marginal costs to be reflected in the market. And I think what you're getting it at might be a separate concern, which might say, you know, what is the underlying calculation or assumptions built into the DEBs, and that might be a separate discussion. But the intent of having a default energy bid is to provide that mirror.
Yeah, and I
So
guess
we don't
just to clarify, I'm not so
assume that they just have a hard stop at 1,000.
Yeah, I guess what I'm not so concerned about the storage resources because this is just a non-issue for storage in day ahead. I'm concerned about lifting the cap for other resources that don't have an issue in real time, which is, I believe, the issue we're really trying to solve. This is not a problem in the day ahead market. So, and I appreciate trying to get alignment between day ahead and real time, but I think there could be unintended consequences of raising the bid caps and the DEBs in the day ahead for any resource. And I don't think we need to raise it in order to fix our real time problem. So why go there?
I think we could keep talking about this for a while. Maybe what would be helpful is if you could come up with some examples or provide some feedback on where you might envision this proposal doesn't seem to fit the bill, and we can talk about it more.
Okay.
And Doug, I would add, I mean, this gets back to opportunity costs we believe are real costs, and if we can reflect them, we would want to in all market environments consistently. So to us, we'd have to understand on a principle level why we wouldn't want to reflect opportunity costs. Like you may be able to get to a similar outcome with the day ahead market and the problem isn't as explicit, but if these are real costs, why not reflect them?
But it's because the reason you need to reflect them in real time is because the real time market doesn't have a great enough look ahead. But for a use limited resource that has, you know, a limited amount of energy in the day ahead market, the market tells you the opportunity cost based on the dispatch. So any other number that we're putting in the bid cap or in the DEB is just an approximation, which will be wrong. And it's an unnecessary approximation. We don't need it because the day ahead market optimizes across the entire day and then tells you what the opportunity cost is. And if it's not a use limited resource, then that's a different issue, right? And that's why for gas fired resources and other resources, we let them justify their costs. And you're not proposing to change that. I'll take Sylvie's suggestion.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. Now I'm hearing your concern is more about the second proposal where we're adding something to the market that wasn't there before. But we can keep talking about that once we get to the meat of it.
Thanks.
Thank you, Doug.
All right, let's go to JK. We have a couple hands after JK. Let's go ahead and unmute JK, and then we do apologize for the slides being a little bit late, but we have good information on a lot of these. So JK, go ahead.
Hi, JK Wang from PG&E. I will be quick. I just have several clarification questions. I think I heard an answer while others asking the questions and Kaiso answering them. But I just want to confirm first of all, these two recommendations will be acting at the same time, right? It's not a alternatives that we choose from, either one or two. They will be acting at the same time. Is that right?
That's the intent. They are technically separable, but the intent is to have a solution for all of the resources that have been in the scope of this discussion. So we wanted to make sure that both the hydro resources and the storage resources that we can consider today were offered sufficient flexibility to meet the objectives of the stakeholders. So
okay.
Both are the goal here. Yeah.
Okay. And my second question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
And I'll explain in a few slides why this top proposal doesn't necessarily solve the problem for storage and the necessity for the additional modification.
Okay. And my second question is following what Dot just asked. Is Kaiso's intent also to apply both in day ahead and real time?
Yes. And again, I'll provide all of those details if we get beyond the slide.
Okay. And if the FERC order E31 is only triggered in real time, then how does that apply?
So we'll get into this once we dive into the first proposal.
Okay, my apologies. Yeah.
But, yeah. Don't worry. It's my fault for not having provided any of this ahead of time, so I totally understand.
No worries. And my next two questions, let me know if you also have the answers in the following proposal. Will those be applied to all resources and throughout the day in all hours?
The uncapped DEB applies to all resources in the EIM that have DEBs. It applies all the time. It is a permanent change.
Okay, so
the second modification, yeah.
Go ahead, sorry.
The second modification is specific to the resource type, energy storage resources, and but does apply in day ahead in real time.
Okay, so it seems like it's independent of the triggering of FERC Order E31 for the recommendation 1. Is that right?
Independent of the triggering, yes. I want to be careful. We have to be careful with precision language here, because the triggering of FERC Order 831 is really something that more so applies to non-resource specific resources today, because today resource specific resources basically trigger their own conditions. You have to cost verify in order to do that. There are no triggering conditions anyway around these resources.
Okay, so am I right that with or without FERC Order 831 being triggered, these two, it sounds a little weird to me, because I thought it will be only triggered when the FERC Order 831 is triggered, and for the imports exports, and they have the cap raised to hard cap. But is that right that it will be applied all the time even without FERC Order 831 is triggered?
So FERC Order 831 envisioned that resources with real marginal costs should be able to reflect those in the market whenever they have those costs. If they're real costs, you should be able to reflect them in the market up to the hard offer cap, as long as you can verify them. So there are no trigger conditions around that, either envisioned by FERC or this proposal. The second one, when we start to talk about the proxy value, which is skipping ahead a little bit, but is similar to today, where it gets triggered by a proxy value that we're going to talk about the max import bid price, but when that goes above the $1,000 soft offer cap, that's how it gets triggered.
Okay, Okay, I will hear more details. Thanks for the clarification.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Jason.
JK. And then we have one more hand here, and we'll dive into the rest here. Alva, go ahead.
Yeah, quite a bit of material there. Thank you, Sylvie, for everything that you're doing. I think I was actually going to echo in listening to the conversation that these two components are in fact separable and they have different forms of urgency around them. The first is you're basically saying this is what's required in order to correctly capture the costs of these resources, and we now see this. And I will point out to people, I know I'm not sure Doug heard, but there are participants in the WIM who are very concerned about hydro not having these. So it may not be my concern, it may not be his concern, but there are people who are very concerned about it. Maybe they'll speak up. But I do think the urgency of that is not related to the problem that is being addressed in the second component. And the only other suggestion I would make there, because I want to hear the rest of your slides, is when you present to at the MSC, I think the point that Danny was making is extremely important and could be shown by providing some sequences of hours, because people are thinking that there's one use case for this, which is you want to avoid discharging early because either there's high value in the peak hours or you have day ahead awards, which are two separate circumstances. It may just be that that you don't have any schedule in the first place, and you want to properly make sure that your energy, when it is discharged at what you see as the true opportunity cost of that in the market based on where the prices are going to be. So likewise, I think there are possibilities of this opportunity cost being evidenced early in the day, in the middle of the day, just before the peak. And if you lump all of this into discharging in hour 15 when you don't want to discharge in hour 15, you get this idea where people are like essentially constructing their whole concept of opportunity cost around that one scenario. And I think it's a more general problem, and maybe people see that that really does exist in a more general way. They'll appreciate that it needs to be addressed in a more general way. Thanks.
Thanks, Alva. Yeah, Sylvie, let's go ahead and get to the rest of your presentation. I'm sure we'll have some good organic conversation from that.
For sure. Let's go to the next slide. Brief overview of Uncap the DEB. This, as a result of moving forward with this proposal, hydro resources would be able to bid up to a value that reflects the opportunity costs already defined in their DEB calculations. And the DEB as a cap would hold true, as we've discussed already, unconditional on other factors besides the DEB calculation itself. If the DEB calculation rises above $1,000, then those costs, as defined by the DEB, are now above $1,000, and the resource can bid up to that value. Resources would not have to take any action to verify these costs because we already have. They're defined as by the reference levels and the parameters in ISO systems and whatever the ISO is observing in the market as inputs. But resources would still have to use the reference level change request process to make adjustments to those reference levels or to that DEB in response to intraday opportunity costs that might be beyond what is captured in that DEB. So we still have this reference level change request process for the purpose that it was designed for. But that would be a next step to consider after this proposal. Next slide. Some more technical detail. The scope of this proposal would apply to all resources with DEBs in the WIM in both day ahead and real time. The technical way to describe uncapping the DEB is that we would revise it. We would revise the DEB on. We would revise the cap on DEB calculations from 1,000 to 2,000, which is reflective of FERC Order Number 831's requirements that cost verified bids are capped at $2,000 per megawatt hour. This has two important implications. One implication is, as Don brought up earlier, is with market power mitigation. So here, if you uncap the DEB, it becomes your DEB, and the logic that holds for market power mitigation today is that bids are reduced to the minimum of the bid and the DEB. So as your DEB goes up, that portion of this logic also increases. If you bid below it, the market power mitigation will just consider the bid that's lower than the DEB. The other implication we're going to talk about, and the market power mitigation implication of this proposal is less significant right now, but when we start talking about the battery resources and the bidding flexibility that we add on top, that's going to become more relevant. So foundation of knowledge, but we'll talk about this more later. The bidding above the soft offer cap. A bid above $1,000 is capped by the max of $1,000, the DEB, or the adjusted DEB. Today, we just have two components. If we get a bid above $1,000, it's capped by $1,000 and an adjusted DEB, with the assumption that the only way to reflect a bid above $1,000 is through the reference level change request process. So we're going to include all three components in the bid cap modification. And what this does is it allows a resource whose DEB is above $1,000 to bid up to the value of that DEB above $1,000. We also recognize that these resources may want to adjust their DEB. Even if a storage or a hydro resource today can't use the reference level change request process, to adjust their DEBs in real time, that's something that we all want to do. That's an objective for further consideration of this problem statement. So we wanted to make sure that this proposal was durable and consistent with future changes. This means that all three have been included in this logic.
Sylvia, we do have a hand up here. Let's go ahead and go to Michelle.
Hey, this is Michelle from Energy Division. Just a couple of questions. Are you concerned at all about market manipulation, given that on stress system days, Palo Verde, which is typically the higher hub, is thinly traded? So imagine if, our market is clearing low prices during the early part of the day, maybe it hits 1,000 in 1 hour, but the bilateral market, well, actually, let's just say someone trades with a counterparty. And so if you've looked at those counterparties in the EQR, you can see that it's primarily marketers, and I'd be happy to provide you the data for all the days because we've looked at this. So are you concerned that a marketer could just do one 25 megawatt transaction and thereby change all the DEBs and bid caps in our entire 50,000 megawatt market?
This proposal doesn't consider the underlying values that are used in the DEB, the appropriateness of them, or what the impact is in the market. All we're looking at right now is the very specific process change of this proposal.
Well, I guess that was about
we can talk more about those concerns when we start digging into the specifics of the proxy values and considering more deeply what's in those calculations.
Okay. So, but if it's just one example. So, I've been thinking about this. Let's say we're in the real-time market and, storage has to sit at 1,000 because they can't use this, during the middle of the day. There's one bilateral bid, so at 1,000, so hydro can sit at 1,400. LPT exports can sit at 2,300 because they're exporting out of the system. So in that circumstances, it appears that we would discharge all of our hydro early, which is what happened on August 16th. So that's one particular problem that you'll probably get to, but we should look at. And the second one is, I believe Scott Harvey talked about the Northwest being, the hydro situation being low hydro. So could you see a situation where a WEAM entity bids their way out of, providing the hydro to their own system during the middle of the day, right? So you sit at 1560. So we run our resources, including our gas, and couldn't that cause a reliability issue for us if we have limited gas throughout the day? So I just feel like, these are the kinds of things that one needs to think about, not to mention the fact that the bilateral indices are thinly traded on stress system days, as we've documented. And also we have a case about this. So I do have some concerns about relying on it. It's sort of like a thin reed to lie. It seems very concerning. I mean, it was okay if we're just applying these all to non-resource specific resources, and there are very few of them. But now we're going to be applying this to 20,000 megawatts of resources, and I do think that there will be problems. So we'll try to enumerate them at some point in time. Thanks.
Yeah, we would appreciate that, and appreciate all of the thought that you've put into the consideration of these values. And I'll note that, in terms of the proposals that we're looking at with this uncap the DEB, it's the first step before we start to consider those refinements to the DEB calculation. So we'll be excited to include all of those considerations in those discussions. And you can help us, and you can help provide feedback on the next part of this proposal when we get there.
I'd like to kind of comment on one thing that Michelle brought up in the middle about the potential export of power backed by thermal resources to the Pacific Northwest. I mean, to us, that's a really good market outcome, right? That's an efficient market outcome if the limited energy resource is able to represent their actual costs, and the CAISO through its thermal fleet can export power to best utilize for the entire WEIM, the set of resources we have. So I don't necessarily see a problem there, Michelle.
Yeah, so Danny, I'd just like to respond. Yeah, in general, I believe that that's the case, but here's the issue, is that California makes all of its resources available with a must offer over and above what's available. But I'm saying if you consider gas a limited resource during the day, so you only have, like, let's say your day ahead schedule, you think the gas is only going to run on the net peak period, but because storage in the WEAM is bidding at 1560, we start discharging. I get it that is a great solution until you run out of gas. Now remember, gas travels slowly, so if we burn all the gas, we do have storage and so forth, but there are limits on the gas system. So I'm just saying that it could relate to a reliability issue if you don't think through it thoroughly, so that maybe the gas has use limitations. It literally can't, it's not permitted to run more than 8 hours a day. And so if we run it in the middle of the day, we don't have it on the net peak. So I don't think we've thought fully through all of these issues.
I'm hearing your concern is more in a next phase as we move through this process, we should figure out how to also proxy intraday opportunity costs relating to forward gas procurement and the potential availability of intraday gas. So that's actually not something that's lost on us.
No,
it doesn't strike us as nearly as immediate of a problem as the storage and the limited SOC or the limited water for hydro. But I agree in principle that that's something we could look at. And probably should.
I think my more important point is that these are really big changes and we're making them really fast. Like, for example, you want comments in 3 days. And we started this effort to solve a very discrete problem, and it's gotten much bigger. And I don't think we have the time to sort of fully understand all the consequences. And I think that they could be severe and dire, especially given that we're premising this entire thing on thinly traded bilateral indices when there's price separation. So I think that there are tremendous opportunities for market manipulation. And I'll be happy to show you the data. Thanks.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thanks, Michelle. So two hands real quick. Let's go to Callie, and then Sybil, I see you. We'll go to you next.
Hi, it's Callie Wells with WPTF. First of all, thank you guys so much for the quick turnaround on this. I know it's been a kind of a very quickly paced effort. I actually wanted to kind of touch back on a comment that was brought up earlier that's also on this slide, and it's implementing this both in the day and the real-time market. I think from a higher perspective and principle, it makes sense, and we support doing it both in the day ahead and real time. I think if you change it just in real time and not in day ahead, you're creating bidding inconsistency between the markets. And anytime you do that, you create systematic price differences, and there's all kinds of market inefficiencies that come along with that. But actually that last conversation that just took place with the gas fleet example, actually I think is a reason why you also want it in the day ahead market, is because you can then better position your gas resources in the day ahead market and help address that forward procurement of the gas issue. So I think in a way that actually helps the reliability issue that was just raised. But just wanted to share that. I think there are some more principled reasons why you definitely want to expand the bidding changes in both the day ahead and the real time market. So we definitely support that element.
Thank you, Callie. And let's go to Sybil next.
Hi, this is Sybil from PGP. I think it is definitely important to acknowledge the interaction with the system energy, the bigger picture equation here. But I just wanted to say that from the Pacific Northwest perspective, we really disagree that this is, a drastic solution to a small problem. This is potentially a very big problem for EIM entities who are trying to manage their resource supply in the EIM. And so I just think that was a characterization that is not accurate for the entities in the Northwest who have not been able to accurately reflect their costs to this point. Thanks.
Thank you, Sybil. All right. Good discussion, but a lot of slides to go. So Sylvie, we'll toss it to you.
To the next slide. We've had a lot of discussion around this, so I thought it was important to clarify visually what this means. The DEB becomes the resource-specific bid cap. If you have a DEB that goes above 1,000, for example, this hydro DEB is calculated to be $1,400. Nothing else factors into this. It doesn't mean that the hydro resources bid cap is now $2,000. It means that the hydro resources bid cap is $1,400. That hydro resource can now bid anywhere between $0 and $1,400. So those bid 1 and bid 2 represent valid bids. Those get entered into our bidding system and the market accepts it. If this hydro resource submits a bid of $1,800, the system will say, well, I'm going to cap it at the higher of $1,000 and the DEB. Since the DEB here is $1,400, the bid will be capped at $1,400. There's no conditions, there's no triggers. Your cap is your DEB. Next slide. We've seen these before, but I wanted to provide it again just to illustrate that what we've observed in an analysis is that these counterfactual hydro DEBs on days where we've observed prices going over $1,000 per megawatt hour have exceeded $1,000 per megawatt hour. Not all the time and not substantially in some of these days, but this does offer some incremental improvement in terms of the issues that we've been discussing around the premature dispatch of capacity. Importantly, though, it's really a first step to making sure that those opportunity costs that are already defined by the DEB can be reflected in the market. Next slide. Same picture, you see these counterfactual hydro DEBs going over $1,000, but what we also see in comparison are storage DEBs, and they, for the most part, don't get that high. Uncapping a storage DEB, for the most part, won't provide sufficient headroom to bid above $1,000, which doesn't solve the problem that stakeholders have been talking about for the past couple of months. So we need an additional solution here. A lot of what we're hearing is, well, let's take a look at what's in the DEB. We want to make improvements to how we capture those opportunity costs, how we're able to define and forecast those opportunity costs. But those aren't solutions that are necessarily available to us for summer. Next slide. I noted earlier that this becomes more important when we look at the incremental modification on storage resource bidding rules. But just to level set on where we are, if a resource is mitigated, it gets mitigated down to the min of the bid and the DEB, and then revised to the competitive LMP or the DEB value. So what we're seeing here is that a hydro resource with a DEB of $1,400, if it submits a bid below its DEB value, then it gets revised either to the bid or that competitive LMP. So here I'm saying the competitive LMP is $1,000. If it's bidding below its DEB value, it gets that competitive LMP. If that resource bids above its DEB value, that's when the DEB kicks in and supplants the resources bid in the market. Next slide. This is something that we view as foundational to all further enhancements, either interim or long run. This is a process change, not a value change. It does not change the basis for calculating reference costs that are described in the ISO's tariff. You would still need supporting information, and you would still need to validate DEB adjustments. All this modification does is allows you to reflect costs that we already have sufficient information to support. This proposal would simplify and support additional interim rules like the one we're about to talk about, as well as further enhancements to the reference level change request process that stakeholders have asked us to consider, including refinements to DEB calculations and modifications to the reference level change request process to facilitate DEB adjustments for a broader scope of resources that aren't gas. All right, are we ready to move on to the next proposal?
Thanks, Sylvia. Yeah, we'll move. This is the end of the uncap the DEB. So any questions? Again, it's, oh shoot, star three if you're in the phone only line. That's going to take me a minute to relearn, or just simply raise your hand at the WebEx. Sylvie, I'm not seeing any hands. Let's go ahead and forge ahead.
Great. The next part of this proposal is an incremental modification on top of uncap the DEB, specifically for energy storage resources. In the near term, even if we uncap the DEB for storage resources, as we've shown, it may not bring those DEB values above $1,000, but we also don't have the capacity to modify the bidding rules for these storage resources in our systems. So we can't inform storage resources bid caps by their DEB by this summer. We need an interim solution in order to help these resources get that additional flexibility in order to reflect the opportunity costs above $1,000, including intraday opportunity costs that we're seeing aren't being reflected. Next slide. So here are some of the specifics. This would apply to all battery storage resources that have default energy bids in the market, and it would apply to both day ahead and real time. This proposal still considers the DEB as uncapped, which means that you can have a storage resource whose DEB rises above $1,000. However, that does not get considered in the resources bidding rules. If a battery storage resource submits a bid above $1,000, our systems would cap that bid by the higher of $1,000, the fourth highest max import bid price value for the relevant trade hour, and the highest cost verified bid known at the time for that relevant trade hour. I'm going to stop there and see if there are questions before we do the market power mitigation piece.
Yeah, Sylvie, we do have a hand up. Let's go ahead and go to Callie, please.
Hi, it's Callie Wells with WPTF. A quick clarifying question on the fourth highest MIP. I thought I heard you just say the fourth highest MIP in that hour. So I guess I'm a little confused. Is it the fourth highest MIP across the day?
Across the day, I misspoke. Thank you, Callie.
No, that's okay. And then is it true the same for the highest cost verified bid across the day? So you have one bid cap across the day, or could it be the highest cost verified bid in that hour if it happens to be higher than the fourth highest MIP?
This considers the relevant trade hour.
For just the cost verified bid?
Yes, for the cost verified bid portion.
Okay, so only an hour. So essentially you'll get, if the fourth highest MIP is higher than any of the cost verified bids, you're going to have one static bid cap across the day.
Correct.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure I understood that.
Thanks, Callie. Let's go ahead and go to Alba, and then Michelle, I see your hand. We'll go to you next.
Yeah, maybe I don't remember whether you covered this in the proposal, but I mean, this is it seems like a very pragmatic solution. Basically, come up with some several surrogates for opportunity cost, and you're essentially taking the highest of them. I'm really curious as to how you think you would present this in the context of FERC, just because it seems like something that would be, it's sort of like it's constructed specifically for one resource type for a specific problem, and it's not necessarily correct in some theoretical sense. How would you see, arguing this? Because it seems like other resources might object to this being specially constructed for batteries.
Well, we see a problem and we want to solve it. We have some constraints. So the idea behind this proposal is to get us to the same place, to the place that we want to be, that we would have otherwise been able to get to through maybe a more technology intensive process. So the hope is, or the objective here is to get the same outcome of being able to, or of providing these resources with the flexibility that they need to reflect accurate opportunity costs. So as long as we are able to, take a look at these values and we get alignment over the concept that the opportunity costs reflected in this proposal are an accurate reflection of those costs, I think we're at least in line with the fundamental concepts that FERC envisions. I'm not sure that I can speak for the outcome for our lawyers here, but it at least captures the principle of allowing these resources to reflect their costs.
Great. So this is
a little
more
plainly said, Alva.
Yeah.
The argument would be that these are all proxies for the opportunity cost that storage resources face.
Okay, good. And you just say these are reasonable proxies for that opportunity cost, and see how the chips fall, essentially.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, everything's a proxy for an opportunity cost.
Opportunity cost is a proxy for opportunity cost, but
exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alva. Let's go to Michelle.
So I have one question. This is Michelle again. I just have one question. So when you say, let's say the maximum import bid price goes to 2,000 in 4 hours, as it did on September 6th. So the fourth highest maximum import bid price is $2,000. So this is the clarification question. Can all storage bid at 2,000 just during those 4 hours, or all day long to represent all 24 hours to represent an opportunity cost?
This proposal describes the latter, that that single value would apply all day long.
Okay, so basically this proposal is if there's $1,000 bilateral price, maybe only 1 megawatt, all hydro can bid at 1,400 because there's a 40% adder, and all storage, because the maximum import bid price shaped for $1,000 bilateral price will be 2,000. So all storage can bid $2,000. So now I just want to focus in on the net peak period. So you're saying that the opportunity cost for all storage, all 12,000 megawatts of it, is 2,000. So if they sit at 2,000, I mean, first of all, their opportunity cost is not really 2,000 during the net peak period, right? Because they need to be discharging, right? Their opportunity cost is essentially zero. I mean, it's their variable cost plus, I mean, right? So so during the highest and most important hours, the opportunity cost is not correct. Is that right?
That's a good observation. There is more discussion of this in the draft final proposal itself, but none of the proxy costs that we're looking at are going to, perfectly approximate opportunity costs. They'll all over or under in some hour. So what you're observing is that this may overestimate opportunity costs in hours of the day.
I don't think it's a may. It will, right? If your maximum import bid price is 2,000, that definitely overestimates your opportunity cost during those 4 hours when you should be discharging. Okay, so then it shouldn't be at 2,000. It should be something less. Now let's look at hydro. Hydro is sitting at 1,400. Now, if it's just an intraday opportunity cost, they too should be discharging during our net peak hour. So their opportunity cost during the most important days and given the highest load hours, that opportunity cost is incorrect as well. Is that right?
Can you restate that question, Michelle?
Sure. So we have hydro. So let's say there's $1,000 bilateral price. There's a 40% adder that you put on for our competitive market, right? So the 40% adder on that bilateral price. So all hydro resources can bid $1,400 all day long. But if they really are use limited, and what they were trying to do was use their opportunity costs to save themselves for the highest price hour, we are now in the highest price hours. There is no opportunity cost, right? I mean,
so
there
this
might be
gets back to the discussion we had earlier about, is there one type of opportunity cost? I think you're referring to, is there an intraday temporal opportunity cost based off market results? But as we talked about earlier, that there could be other opportunity costs as well that
but that's what
could justify bidding higher.
But that's what the bilateral index is. That's why we're using it as the proxy. The theoretical thing is they could have sold it in the bilateral index, but they can't really because the bilateral index is closed. But now what they can sell it is our market. And in our market, their opportunity costs are zero. I just want to be clear that sometimes we're trying to be economically efficient, and then during the net peak hour, we're not, right?
I don't disagree, Michelle, that a more narrow solution could better estimate the different types of opportunity costs at the different time periods during the day. That's not what's on the table from an implementation standpoint, and so we're simply, this is what we think we would reasonably, or have some feasibility for potential implement. So if your point is that this solution isn't super narrowly targeted, I think we would agree that this isn't a super narrowly targeted solution.
Yeah, is you have to determine, what we're saying to everyone is it is just and reasonable that the prices that come out of the market are just and reasonable. And we're saying that those opportunity costs are cost verified. But we even theoretically, we know that the opportunity cost during those hours should be vastly lower than 2,000 and 1,400. So how can we say when the market clears at 2,000 or 1,400 that that's a just and reasonable outcome?
I think you're highlighting a couple of interesting points. To Danny's point, there's a lot more discussion to be done around refining these proxies. Another is that this is different from modifying the DEB calculation itself. We did see stakeholder recommendations that we incorporate the max import bid price into the reference level change request process or into resource DEB. And as you've noted, that's a complicated question, and we definitely need a more robust policy process to consider a change like that. However, this is somewhat different. We're modifying the bidding logic itself, which means that there's a backstop here that reflects that using the DEB calculation as it already is today. And I have a slide that shows what happens if the storage resources use a range of that headroom. And and what we've heard from the storage community is that they don't expect to use that full headroom during certain hours because they are competing to discharge and get an energy award.
Yes. However, we're doing this only during stress system conditions, which is precisely the circumstance that FERC said you could have the exercise of market power. And here we are handing it to 12,000 megawatts of storage that know that they're likely to be needed. And we're saying, go ahead and bid above your cost, even though your opportunity cost is potentially zero. I'm fine with you bidding 2,000. Likewise, we're saying, hydro, I know your opportunity cost is well below 1,400 because you need to discharge. There is no opportunity cost during the net peak period, and yet we're handing it to them, say, go bid $1,400. You're guaranteed during a stress system condition a non-just and reasonable outcome. Because
if they're not mitigate, market power mitigation can still trigger, and we've seen that on these high price days. In fact, some of the problems that we've seen have been because storage resources bid higher and then are mitigated down to their DEBs and are discharged earlier in the day because of that. So this solution wouldn't necessarily address that issue. We still have market power mitigation. The DEBs are not getting changed. We're offering bidding flexibility, but there's still a risk that we end up with the DEBs as currently calculated in the bids as currently assumed.
Right, but
and I don't know if that's a risk or an opportunity. It's both sides of the coin.
Well, okay. Well, yeah, I think I've made my point. Thanks.
Thanks, Michelle.
All right, Sylvie, no other hands in queue. Let's go ahead.
Great.
I take
Next
that
slide.
back. As soon as I think it's because I said that, we had a couple of hands come up. So Dawn, we'll go to you first, and then Callie, we'll go to you next.
Thanks. So Don Trethewey from CISA. I just wanted to make a couple points in the concern that Michelle is raising, that I don't think it actually is that her concern is warranted. Because again, think about and I'm talking the real-time market. So if I'm a storage resource and I have a day-ahead schedule that has me fully discharging, and let's say the day-ahead price was $800, why would I ever want to bid $2,000 to buy back my schedule and lose money? You would never do that. It's irrational. Likewise, if an EIM storage or a hydro resource is being base scheduled because that's the peak hour that they needed to discharge the water in, why would they ever bid $2,000 to basically buy back their base schedule and have to pay $2,000? And then the third scenario is, let's say someone doesn't have a day-ahead schedule. Then the true opportunity cost is what you could go sell it bilaterally to outside the market. So then in that case, it is appropriate for someone to be bidding at that level if they don't have a day-ahead schedule. So again, I think it's really important to think about what the incentives are to buying back your day-ahead or base schedule. They're completely aligned with not doing what Michelle is concerned about.
All right, thanks, Don. Callie, I do see your hand, but Michelle, if you wanted to respond, please re-raise your hand.
So I have like 3 comments. So the first is what we're saying here is that these are stress system conditions, and you will probably also get bid cost recovery. So CAISO is eventually going to need you. So if you sit at 2,000, they're probably going to make you discharge, and then they'll have to pay you $2,000. So there is some incentive. Likewise, we did see storage resources in the data that CAISO presented sitting at $1,000 on those days. Now, why were they sitting at $1,000? I have no idea if they had a day ahead schedule. Maybe they didn't have a day ahead schedule. And third, they don't really have the opportunity to bid in the bilateral market, because that bilateral market price that we're doing is a day ahead price, and it is closed. It is done. And it's also thinly traded. We cannot sell 12,000 megawatts of storage on the bilateral market that on a regular day transacts 75 megawatts. So it's a fiction. Thanks.
Let's go to Callie.
Yeah, hi, it's Callie Wells with WPTF. I had a couple of reactions to the concerns that were raised as well. Don hit on one of them that I was going to mention, is that I think we have to keep in mind there are other incentives at play here that I think would prevent storage resources from bidding at 2,000 during those, net load peak hours. And he articulated those very well. I think the other piece of this, and why I think using the 4th highest maximum import bid price makes sense in this case, is because I think it strengthens the tie to cost verified bids. Because if you go back to the storage DEB calculation, which has been approved by FERC as just and reasonable, went through a very lengthy stakeholder process, the opportunity cost used in that formulation is the 4th highest day ahead LMP. Now, the CAISO and the analysis last week, or the last working group here, showed data that the real-time LMPs actually track the MIP really well. So I think because those track really well together, there is, a very strong argument to be made that the 4th highest maximum import bid price is a good proxy for an updated expected opportunity cost that the DEBs already reflect. So I just wanted to make that point, that I think this actually makes a stronger case that these, even though I know maybe from an implementation perspective it's being done on the bid cap side, I think it is helping to strengthen that tie between cost verified. So just wanted to make that point as well. Thanks.
Okay, so Sylvie, now thank you for that that back and forth to all of you there and the engagement. Sylvie, no other hands in queue. We'll give it a second if that raised hand. No, all right, we're good to go. Go for it.
Let's go on to the next slide. So I made these slides this morning, and there's probably some labels missing, but just jump in if you need more explanation. This is what you're looking at is a world in which we provide all resources with an uncapped DEB. So in this scenario, we have a storage resource whose DEB based on the day ahead market is calculated to be 1,400. I know we've seen that doesn't happen very often, but in this example, the storage resources DEB goes to 1,400. However, as we've noted, we cannot use the resources DEB to inform the bid cap. Without the modification that we were just talking about, a storage resources bid cap is still effectively $1,000. So if the storage resource tries to bid to 800 and the competitive LMP ends up being $1,000, you get that price. But if you start to bid higher, your bid is going to be revised down, both because we can't modify the bid capping logic and because of market power mitigation. But let's look at what happens when we add this modification to provide additional bidding flexibility without modifying the DEB. So let's go to the next slide. In this scenario, let's say the max import bid price, the 4th highest value of the max import bid price is $1,800. And that's going to effectively set the cap for a storage resource. But remember, it can bid any range between 0 and 1,800. The DEB is 1,400. And only under the scenario when the resource is able to bid above the DEB does that DEB value kick in for market power mitigation. Otherwise, it's going to be mitigated just as it normally is. So you can see that if a storage resource tries to bid outside of the range that is defined by the DEB value, the verified cost of that resource, it is at risk of being mitigated down. I don't have any other summary thoughts about that, but I wanted to make sure that stakeholders had this information and can provide comment on it.
There we go. We got a couple of hands. Aaron, I see you, but Dawn, I saw your hand kind of go up and down a couple of times. Let's go to Dawn first. Aaron, we'll come to you, and then we'll go to you, Doug.
Yeah, this is Don Trethaway. I can't seem to figure out whether my hand is up or down. It doesn't really change much color on my screen. So my question is in bid 2. They're bidding $1,400. They have a cost verified bid or a DEB of 1,400. Why would they go down to 1,000? Wouldn't that one be at 1,400 too?
I should have written down the logic that I went through.
Well, if you
The
look, I
bid,
think you have the dark blue bars.
you know
The
what?
dark blue bar is 1,000.
Yeah.
So if you move that down to 1,000, I would agree that that was correct.
What I should have done is made it incrementally lower than the DEB. So imagine that bid number 2 is 1,399.
Okay. Then is it 1,300? Is it mitigated to 1,399?
Market power mitigation will first take the min of the bid and the DEB. So it's going, if it's $1,399, it's going to consider the bid, not the DEB.
Yeah, okay. Good.
Okay.
So you're going to be,
Don.
basically you're going to be mitigated to the uncapped DEB, or $1,000 really, or the right.
I do see, so Sylvia, I see James has his hand up here. Don, give us 1 sec. James, why don't we go ahead and let's let James respond here.
I think I can help clarify. So the market power mitigation rules work where if your bid is lower than the competitive LMP or the default energy bid, then there's your bid becomes the bid that's used in the IFM or in the now if your bid is high, or if the competitive LMP and the DEB is lower than your bid, then you're mitigated to the higher of those 2 reference prices.
Yep.
I hope that helps. And in this case, when I say DEB, that would include that would mean the uncapped DEB.
All right, thanks, James. Aaron, let's go ahead and go to you. And Aaron, I do see you're unmuted, but we're not hearing you. Check for that age-old double mute, if you wouldn't mind. All right, Aaron, unfortunately, we are not able to hear you. I don't know if you want to try to reconnect and re-raise your hand, or if you'd like to put your comment in the chat. I'd be more than happy to read that aloud for you. Let's go, while we kind of figure out Aaron's audio issues here, let's go ahead and move on to Doug, and Aaron will come back to you.
Hi, Doug Bochignone for BAMX. I just wanted to comment. This makes sense to me in the real-time market. It makes perfect sense. As I said earlier, I think for the day-ahead market, it's really not relevant. It doesn't need to be. A storage resource in the day-ahead market is not capped at capturing opportunity cost by limiting the current $1,000 megawatt hour cap. I mean, I guess if it was less than 50% efficient, or the combination of its poor efficiency and really high variable cost, maybe. But and it's really just the spread between charging and discharging that matters in the day-ahead market for storage. So I guess...
I didn't include the part of this explanation here, but going into the day-ahead market, storage resources are capped at 1,000, and there's no like conditionality around that, because the storage DEB is calculated by the day-ahead market itself. So storage resources that use the storage DEB option, even if the opportunity costs in the day-ahead market run are real, or end up being calculated as real, storage doesn't have a way to submit those bits because we don't know it yet. So adding this logic to both the day-ahead and the real-time market is an acknowledgement of that fact, and is an attempt to provide a proxy wherever we see that possible distortion.
Yeah, and I'm just saying
it also provides
no distortion.
Consistency between day ahead and real time.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Sylvia. I thought you were finished.
No.
I'm just saying.
I did too. I'm sorry.
There is no distortion in the current day ahead market formulation for capturing opportunity cost. It does it without jumping through any of these hoops.
I think that's an observation that we can look at more in the analysis, because we have seen a few instances where these DEBs do rise above $1,000, and so it might be a good question as to what's going on those days, and what the appropriateness of the underlying calculation is.
Yeah, and I just think of it this way, and it's only thinking of the efficiency component. I don't know what the variable piece of it is, but if you're worried about the prices going to $2,000, then as long as you bid a charging of the delta between your charging bid and your discharging bid is $300, and you were 85% efficient, you're covered. So the bid cap only needs to, and you could bid negative for the charging part. So you don't even, this cap is just it's a non-factor in the day ahead market. I mean, if we're worried about prices going to $10,000, we'd be having a different conversation. I mean, even that, I think it's still wouldn't matter. If you just bid charge at $0 and discharge at $1, you're going to get put into the right hours and you'll get the right value. And that value will fully reflect opportunity cost. All right. I'm repeating myself. I'll stop.
No, it's fine. We appreciate the comments.
Thank you, Doug. All right, Aaron, let's try you one more time because you did get remuted by the event producer, but let's see if that works. If not, I'll read your comment. Let's try.
How about now? Can you all hear me?
We can. Go ahead. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you for this. So I was curious, in the scenarios of the data that you've analyzed on this particular slide and looked at stress system conditions, whether or not this type of situation actually holds where the competitive LMP remains at $1,000 despite the maximum import bid price going up to 1,800, at least on the fourth highest hour. In other words, it seems like most often you would have the competitive LMP going up and then you do lose your market power mitigation.
So I think the observation is that this would have an impact on the competitive LMP and therefore have an impact on market power mitigation. Am I reading that correctly?
Not necessarily an impact, just if we're looking at the maximum import bid price going up to, well, I guess in the fourth highest hour going up to $1,800, have you looked at what happens on those stress system conditions and whether or not the competitive LMP is actually remaining at $1,000? Because I think this slide assumes that it does. And I think the concern is that it doesn't. And if there is a correlation between our competitive LMP and those bilateral markets, that we lose this competitive LMP market power mitigation where it's keeping prices down to 1,000 and they're actually going up. And so that this, so the bid 3 scenario doesn't actually result in mitigation because a competitive LMP, say, goes up to 1,800.
So I saw
Yeah,
James's
interesting
hand. Oh, I'm sorry, Sylvie, go ahead.
We don't have a way to create like a counterfactual world in which we can rerun the market and see how this would affect the competitive LMP. We have thought about other ways to sort of assess the situation. One of the pieces of analysis that we're working on is looking at what bids get revised down to on high price days when market power mitigation does trigger. Are these resources getting mitigated to the competitive LMP or the DEB? And hopefully that will help as a puzzle piece. But we're open to talk about other ways to do that assessment.
Sorry, Sylvie, didn't mean to step on you there. Thanks, Aaron. James, I saw your hand go up. Do you want to add anything here?
I do, just a few clarifications. So the competitive LMP being 1,000 is just for this scenario, an example. In reality, so a couple things. A competitive LMP is a local price. There's a competitive LMP at every node on the system. There's not a single system competitive LMP. The definition of competitive LMP essentially uses the same LMP methodology, but excludes non-competitive transmission constraints and their impact on price out of the LMP calculation. And so you would get a competitive LMP for reference at every P node, that every resource that is tested for market power is used as a reference price, including their DEB. And so as we explained on the slide or earlier, market power mitigation, if your bid is higher than either the competitive LMP or the DEB, you're mitigated to the higher of those values to mimic the competitive price at that location. And I'll say that the competitive LMPs will change with bidding rule changes because anytime you're expecting changes in price formation, naturally your competitive LMPs will change relative to the status quo because you're allowing resources to bid a different value, and that might change the LMP at any given location. So I hope those clarifications help.
Thanks, James. And then, Sylvie, we have one more hand for you here in Alpha. Let's go ahead and unmute Alpha.
Yeah, relative to the idea that whether this should be applied day ahead or not, I mean, I don't really know the answer, but I will say empirically, I'm not confident of Doug's observation that you're bidding an arbitrage day ahead. My observation is that it very much depends on how you bid your charge price and your discharge price, and one or the other of them being more in the money is going to dictate the effects of your bidding. And so it is actually very relevant, potentially, what you bid your charge or discharge at. I'd like to see DMM do some, empirical study, or maybe Guillermo, of what actually, whether pure arbitrage bids get taken in the market, like if you bid 0 and 1, like Doug was saying, does that get used correctly? My observation is it doesn't, but I think it's worth getting more information on that. The other thing, since this is just an opportunity to throw mud at the proposal to see whether anything sticks, I will say that this, relative to day ahead versus real time, there is a possible unforeseen consequence of this, which is that you'll have batteries bidding not to supply in day ahead in order to get the real time, price, which is systematically higher than the day ahead price. If this doesn't lead to a systematic real time day ahead real time arbitrage, it seems like a good solution. But I think over a course of a number of stress days, you could see a situation where this would lead to storage essentially, economically or otherwise withholding from the day ahead market because they're going to get a better price in real time. I wonder what you think about that.
I think, Alva, that's something we can monitor for. My initial reaction would be virtual should somewhat help with this problem. And beyond that, there's also kind of RA must offer obligations, right, for a lot of these resources.
Okay. Thanks.
Thanks, Alva. And Sylvie, we have Don's hand back up, so we have one more here for you. Don, go ahead.
Don Trethewey from CISA. Completely agree with your comments, Danny, on responding to Alva on that. I also think I would refer Doug to the ESDR 4 initiative, where there were changes to the day ahead DEB, where they incorporated the fourth highest LMP from the market power mitigation run as a estimate of opportunity costs. The original design didn't have an opportunity cost in day ahead for the same logic that he had, that, it's a 24-hour optimization is going to work. But for some reason, it didn't work exactly as intended, and they had to add that opportunity cost into there. I was back trying to really quickly read to see what the justification was, or what the problem was. It was pretty light in the documentation, but I think there was a recognition that actually not including the opportunity cost was problematic and had to be changed. And I think just, again, reflecting the correct costs as calculated by the CAISO in the market seems appropriate in both markets.
Thanks, Don. All right, that is all the questions we have in queue here. I know we have a couple of other, no, let's take that back. Doug, let's unmute your line, please.
Hi, Doug Boccignone for BAMX. I just want to respond to Alva and Don. I'm not arguing that you could just do simplistic arbitrage bidding with 0 and 1, although I think in many circumstances it works just fine. I'm just saying that the 1,000 in an environment where we're talking about whether it's $1,000 bid cap or $2,000 bid cap, the current market structure works. You can capture the spread between the charging cost and the discharging cost with that $1,000 cap. And that's all. That's my point. And so I just don't think this is necessary in the day ahead.
All right, thanks. We are running up on time. We have about 4 more slides of analysis. We really want to get into kind of some stakeholder discussion on monitoring and evaluation. So let's go ahead and Michelle, let's go to you really quickly, and then we'll move on to the analysis slide.
Okay, it's not exactly a quick issue though. It really has to do with the bilateral indices. We do have ongoing litigation about the bilateral indices, and I would note that in most cases, those bilateral indices have been limited to 1,000. And in part, they're limited to 1,000 because there's a WEC-wide soft offer cap. And if you bid above 1,000, you have to cost justify at FERC. And I would note that many of the parties that are parties to these transactions have argued at the DC Circuit that these are subject to the Mobile Sierra doctrine. And so whatever price they sign is just and reasonable. So I would note that you're potentially opening this up to tying it to index that so far have been limited to 1,000 because of the fear of litigation and ongoing litigation, which if it's resolved in, based on the parties that intervene, including Shell and others, there will be no soft offer cap in the West-wide market. And they're also thinly traded. So have you thought about the implications of doing this at this particular time when there's questions about whether there's a West-wide soft offer cap?
Michelle, you said there's ongoing litigation, right? Right now, the law of the land is there's still a West-wide soft offer cap. Is that correct?
Yes, the law of the
Okay.
land is.
Well, then.
No.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I mean, yes.
Sorry. But the FERC rule right now is that you can point to the index itself as your cost justification. So if you have one transaction at 1,300 and you point to your own transaction, that is sufficient cost justification. And your entire scheme here rests on that foundation.
I understand that, and from what I understand, there's ongoing litigation. So to the extent that changes what the rules are for the West soft offer cap, I think we would look at it at that time, and we can follow up with you and make sure that we're monitoring the status of the litigation along with you as well.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thanks, Michelle. Let's go ahead and move on to the next slide. I am unfortunately I'm going to be kind of driving us here with 8 minutes left. Let's go ahead and move to next slide, and we'd like to present a little bit of analysis to you guys.
Thanks, Juan. I also have my colleague Katie here to provide a tiny bit of context to this analysis, which you can take a look at in the draft final proposal, and we'd love to hear your comments on it. So, Katie, can you tell us what we're looking at?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Sylvie. Good morning, folks. So not much time to get into it here. So I think, more details in the paper, but just to give a little sort of sample of what we've put in there, just some metrics to sort of help wrap our heads around some of these proposed metrics that have been discussed to date. So one of the things we thought might be interesting to look at is a comparison of the max import bid price, two components of the max import bid price, specifically the hourly curve for reference, as well as that fourth highest MIBP value that's being proposed for specifically part of the storage bid cap, and then comparing those to the actual real-time RTPD storage LMPs that materialized in the market. As Sylvie mentioned, there's no way to do sort of a perfect counterfactual, but comparing how these prices trended to what we actually saw in the market is maybe a helpful way to sort of compare and contrast. So what I'm showing here is effectively a box plot of the 15-minute market storage LMPs or a subset of some of the peak hours, so hour ending 14 through 22, kind of capturing the afternoon through the end of the evening ramp. So box whisker plot showing kind of the full interquartile range of those LMPs plus the outliers. Some interesting things to note here. I think you can obviously kind of pick up on some of these outliers. As James had mentioned before, these are of course nodal specific LMPs, so there may be certain congestion components that are filtering into those LMPs, driving them higher for particular nodes. But generally we see sort of an interesting shape as we go through the ramp and the peak hours, seeing those storage LMPs kind of follow that trend, max out around the $2,000 mark, which is, also where that fourth highest MIBP value is hitting. So this is for specifically September 6th, 2022. I think we put a couple other days of interest in the paper, so those are available as well. Let's go to the next slide, see what else we have. Oh, okay. So we have the other days that we looked at, I guess. So August 16th, 2023, another day of interest, summer heat wave day back in 2023. So this is showing the same thing, I think interesting to note here, as opposed to the previous metric, a bit more spread in the range of those storage LMPs between the 25th and the 75th percentiles of the groupings, somewhat less presence of outliers. So you have a little bit kind of a lower trend of those LMPs as compared to some of the other pricing trends we're comparing, the max import bid price trends. Let's go to the next slide. This is the same snapshot for January 14th, 2024. So again, different season, different pricing conditions. Here we're seeing that max import bid price set a bit higher due to the presence of higher bilateral indices that are folded into that calculation, while the storage LNP distribution is somewhat lower, sort of reflecting some of those regional price differences and conditions that were observed in that time. Let's go to the next slide. Oh, I think that was it for me. Sylvie or Danny, back to you guys.
Thanks, Katie. And any questions on that? Paul, I see your hand. Let's go to you.
Yeah, thanks. Paul Warhatch from Public Advocates. This actually is a general comment that I have, that we think it's very important that the CAISO comprehensively and accurately reflect stakeholder positions in the final proposal. Just to an extent in the draft, the concerns and opposition was downplayed, and from review of the comments submitted in the last round, and certainly from today's conversations, there's clearly not consensus that, broadly speaking, on one side we've got, with either concerns or opposition, we have LSEs and advocates and the regulator perhaps, and on the other we have largely resource owners. So we just want to make sure that that's accurately reflected in the final draft that goes to the board. Thanks.
Sure. Thanks, Paul. In fact, we're going to update the appendix for the draft final proposal to reflect a summary of the stakeholder comments that we got in yesterday. So we'll be able to capture those for every step of the way.
Thank you, Paul. All right. Katie, thank you. Before we go to monitoring and evaluation, Alva, let's go ahead and go to you.
Yeah, just a quick question to Danny and Sylvia. Do you have some assurance from? I mean, I'm not sure where this lives. Whether I assume it's in cyber, but that are you confident in the ability to implement and do testing? And there would need to be market simulation around this as well, in the time frame that the timeline that you laid out at the beginning of this presentation.
Yeah, there's always risk, and we are doing everything we can to work through all of the feasibility and implementation barriers to get us from here to there.
But you have some.
Speaking to your specific question, Alva, yeah. We have scoped in time for markets and to be available to test this.
Oh, that's good too. Okay.
It won't be like a full spring release, fall release, market sim. I think it'll be a little bit more unstructured, but it's planned for as part of the release.
Okay, and hopefully
you add that to the schedule. Yeah.
Yeah, you need to creating scenarios where these conditions are likely to be triggered is important in doing that unstructured market simulation. Thank you.
I appreciate that feedback, Alva. And the schedule today was mainly about the schedule for policy development. If you go back to the feasibility assessment, it's a little bit broader, and we definitely did take market sim into account. So we're running right up on time here. Sylvie, let's go ahead and toss this over to you to maybe queue up this question, and we can perhaps get that back in the comment template. We did want to make sure we had this conversation kind of similar to last time want to make sure that we had this conversation with the stakeholder community, and that always helps us shape the comment template. So Sylvie, let's give the floor to you.
Yeah, not much else. Wanted to put a final plug for an integral step of this whole proposal, which is to make sure that we have a plan for monitoring and evaluation in place, so that we can monitor the use of the new bidding flexibility, help inform the future of enhancements and market reforms. There's also some stakeholder comments that express concern over maybe skipping the part where suppliers are required to provide supporting documentation for a cost verification. And while we've noted that all of that information for the current debt values is in the system, we also want to make sure that stakeholders know that we'll have a monitoring plan in place to provide that additional layer of transparency and protection.
Thanks for that, Sylvie, and great job on the presentation. Let's go ahead and move to the next slide, and we will toss this back to Brenda Corona to close us out.
Thank you, Juan. Just confirming my audio. Candace, can you hear me? Just want to make sure.
We can hear you.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Juan. So to everyone's, we have posted the presentation and the draft final proposal. We also are expecting comments for that to be on the 8th. We did send out that notice yesterday. And thanks everyone for your patience on the emailing. We have been working with our service desk. There's been a few hiccups with the emailing server, so there's been a few times we've been spamming you guys, so I apologize for that. Also, if you have any more questions, we do have upcoming comment deadline for the 16th working group session number 16 for May 10th. And then on the next slide, if you may, we are having just a few more other announcements externally about the save the date for the stakeholder symposium. We expect hopefully to have that registration site up and running later this month. More details to come soon, and sponsorship opportunities as well. And the last slide is just to announce that the CAISO website is launching this late May. We have training sessions held on May 23rd and May 29th with the respective times. Be out and look out for a daily briefing on those details. So at this time, we thank everyone for this moment to take time to be here with us, and we will have this recording expedited so that way we can see it pretty soon, shortly within the next day or so. So thanks so much for everyone, and I appreciate it. And I'll pass it back to Candace to resume this, to finish this call for us. Thanks.
That concludes our conference. Thank you for using Inteller Events. You may now disconnect.